Welcome to the deep dive. When you think about moving to Asia, maybe for work, the first things that jump to mind are usually, the job, the visa, the career paths.
Right, the practical stuff.
Exactly. But we know the real story, the big adventure, and honestly, often the toughest part happens outside the office. It's that really personal journey of fitting in culturally, building a whole new life.
Hmm.
So today, we're diving deep into some key sources. We've got excerpts from Navigating New Horizons, Exploring Cultural Integration and Expat Life in Asia, plus articles from Travel and Leisure Asia, the Jakarta Post, even the New York Post.
A good mix there.
Yeah, and our mission is to piece together what life on the ground really looks like. We want to pull out the core insights about building community, cultural immersion, and, what success actually means for expats there.
Okay.
And right off the bat, our sources point to three really crucial things that go beyond the usual headlines. First, expats aren't just like long-term tourists. They're actively jumping into local culture.
Engaged participants, yeah.
Second, while it's often super fulfilling, the journey's got real challenges, including tackling some pretty ingrained stereotypes.
Hmm. We'll get into that.
And third, the expat experience itself is incredibly diverse. It's not just one story.
And understanding the diversity is so important. I mean, these articles really drive home that living abroad is this profound act of personal reinvention. It's not just about climbing the career ladder.
Right?
It's about people creating these genuine cross-cultural connections, enriching their own lives, sure, but also adding skills and, well, perspectives to the countries they now call home.
Okay, let's unpack that first theme then.
Mm.
How expats deal with feeling homesick and really find ways to connect with local life, often it seems, through specific cultural happenings.
Yeah, the festive side of things.
Totally. So for the huge Indian diaspora across Southeast Asia, the festive season, like Navratri, could easily be a time you really miss home. But the sources show this amazing community resilience.
Right.
In places like Malaysia, Singapore, Hong Kong, Thailand, you find these incredibly lively Navratri celebrations.
Very vibrant, yeah.
The reporting gets into the details how these events let people really dive into traditions like Garba and Dandiya dancing.
The circular dances, the stick dances.
Yeah.
Great energy.
And enjoy authentic Indian food. But here's the really interesting bit. These aren't like closed-off events.
No, that's key.
We see specific examples that Singapore Gujarati Society's truly original Navratri, Hong Kong's Navratri Utsav, they actively invite locals and tourists to come join in.
And that's fascinating, isn't it? The sort of social function these events have. It's doing two things at once.
How so?
Well, yes, they keep that cultural connection alive for the diaspora, miles from India. But maybe even more importantly, they become these real hotspots for cultural exchange, almost innovation. By inviting local communities to join the Garba, it stops being just about nostalgia and becomes a platform for real connection. It shows active integration, not just keeping traditions behind closed doors, culture moving, evolving.
That's a great point. And it leads nicely into the next area, moving from those big organized events to the day-to-day support systems, building that community structure.
Absolute crucial.
Feeling like you belong is just essential, practically and emotionally, when you're living abroad. And the shape of these networks is actually pretty diverse.
Yeah, not monolithic at all.
One deep dive looked into communities forming for specific groups. It noted that South Korea, Vietnam, Thailand, China, Indonesia, they're becoming really popular places for Black expats.
Increasingly so, yes.
And the examples show these communities often have organized meetups, regular events. It gives them a vital network for sharing experiences, but also, crucially, for figuring out the complexities of daily life.
And connecting that to the bigger picture. These networks are basically essential infrastructure. Maybe informal, but infrastructure nonetheless.
What do you mean?
Well, they give you that emotional backup, sure.
Yeah.
But they also share practical advice that you just need. It kind of counteracts that romantic idea of the lone expat figuring it all out.
Right, like you need people to ask, how did you deal with this visa issue? Or where do you find reliable, whatever.
Exactly. And we saw strong evidence of this in Hong Kong. After the COVID restrictions eased up, the existing expat community made a real effort to welcome this big wave of newcomers.
Oh, interesting.
Yes, setting up events, sharing info, immediately reinforcing that global connection and offering practical help right away.
Yeah.
That camaraderie is vital.
But wait, if you rely only on those established expat groups, is there sometimes a downside? Like, does that strong network maybe I don't know, make it harder to dive deep into the local culture.
That's the tension, isn't it? That's the trade-off the sources touch on.
Okay.
While those networks are absolutely essential for your sanity and for practical stuff, one report, I think from the Sydney Morning Herald, kind of hinted at the risk of ending up in a bit of a social bubble. The expats who seemed most successful and fulfilled in the research, they were the ones who managed to use the comfort of the expat network while also really pushing themselves to learn the local language, understand the social norms.
So it's a balancing act.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Lean on your tribe, but don't let it wall you off from your new home.
Okay, so even with all this connection and culture, the expat life isn't free from, well, judgment from the outside, especially negative stereotypes.
Unfortunately, no.
We should probably address that recent thing that popped up in pop culture, this label for some Western men in Asia as losers back home, or LBH.
Right, that caused a stir.
Yeah, this generalization, which seems to come from specific dating scenes or social dynamics in certain places, it tries to frame moving to Asia as basically running away from failure.
A simplistic take, often.
Well, there's definitely pushback documented in the sources. Expats responding saying, hang on, their decision to move was mostly proactive, a deliberate choice.
For opportunity, for exploration.
Exactly. For cultural exploration, unique jobs, personal growth. They often talk about finding real success and fulfillment, professionally and personally, in their adopted countries, arguing that the move was about seeking a better, maybe a more adventurous life, not escaping failure.
Which brings up a really important question. How do we even define success when someone moves internationally?
Good point.
The sources really highlight that fulfillment abroad isn't just about your salary or job title. For lots of people, like One Piece and Travel Noir mentioned, success is measured differently.
Like what?
Like cultural depth, maybe mastering a tough language or volunteering with an NGO or just finding a slower, more meaningful way of living.
Right, not just economic.
Precisely.
Yeah.
This counter-narrative really pushes back against the idea that moving abroad has to be because something was wrong back home. It can be, and very often is, about searching for a different, maybe richer definition of a happy life.
Okay, so moving past the social debates for a minute, just living abroad day to day means constantly adapting to practical things. Let's talk about some of those real-world hurdles the sources brought up.
Yeah, the nitty-gritty stuff.
For instance, sources talk about the struggle just finding the right place to live and work long-term when you first arrive.
Oh, that's a big one.
Asia's pull is strong, but sorting out housing contracts, maybe temporary service departments while you search, finding professional serviced offices if you're there on assignment, that can be a huge administrative headache before you even get your work permit sorted.
Absolutely. It underlines that infrastructure challenges, not just cultural ones, are major stressors.
Definitely.
That's a critical point. You know, cultural adjustment gets a lot of attention, but the sheer practical weight of getting settled is massive. There was one article describing an Australian woman moving to Mongolia, and her struggle wasn't just learning the language, which was hard enough. It was the daily grind, the exhausting effort of navigating cultural differences in everything from finding an apartment lease she could understand to dealing with bureaucracy that wasn't exactly transparent.
Wow, yeah.
Those are real-life adjustments, and they're made tougher when you urgently need reliable, decent accommodation or a proper place to work.
And we do see governments in Asia starting to recognize this practical side. The Jakarta Post had a piece on Indonesia trying to streamline work permits.
Indeed. And if you link that back to economic policy,
Yeah.
these efforts, I mean, even if they sometimes get tangled up with issues like corruption, which the sources also mentioned,
Right.
they clearly show how important foreign talent is seen to be. Whether it's skills, investment, new businesses, host countries are actually trying to make it easier to come in because they need that talent.
So the friction is being addressed somewhat.
They're trying. At the end of the day, Asia stays this huge magnet, not just for the culture, but because the professional and personal opportunities are massive. If you can get through that initial adaptation phase.
And despite all those hurdles, the rewards seem consistently huge.
Yeah.
Across all the reports, expats talk about the real warmth they feel from local people, the chance to actually make a difference.
Yeah, maybe through NGO work or teaching.
And ultimately, the chance to build a life that's both deeply satisfying and genuinely adventurous, often way beyond what they might have imagined back home.
That sense of possibility.
So wrapping this up, what does it all mean for you, the listener, maybe thinking about Asia? Our deep dive shows it's Well, it's complicated. A rich tapestry.
Definitely not simple.
It's full of amazing cultural moments, these vital communities people build out of need and friendship, and yeah, sometimes having to push back against stereotypes to define your own success. It takes real participation, resilience when you hit those hurdles, bureaucratic, or even just like the constant humidity mentioned for Hong Kong and being open to being constantly challenged but also rewarded.
And I think the key takeaway is that active engagement is what makes it work. That
Hmm.
seems to be the foundation of fulfillment.
Yeah.
Expats are clearly enriching their own lives, but they're also adding to the unique social and economic mix of their adopted countries.
Yeah.
We saw that with the Navratri events welcoming locals, the expat networks helping newcomers.
Right. It's a two-way street.
Exactly.
Mm.
So maybe let's leave you with this thought. If that relationship between expats and host countries is so strong, this reciprocal thing, and cultural participation is so important, what's the long-term effect of this constant flow of global talent?
Mm.
Does it fundamentally change the host cultures economically, socially, artistically? And if it does, how do these newcomers find the balance between diving deep into the culture, immersing themselves, while also respecting and maybe even helping preserve traditions in their new home? That dynamic is always shifting.